It's honestly hard to forget just how epic the Disney villains from the 90s were. The moment the world stood still while Mufasa fell to his death. That wasn't just an epic movie scene, that was a scene that traumatized an entire generation. Now think back to the Golden Age. We had Jafar, Hades, Ursula, Shan Yu. The movies we grew up with, they didn't just have bad guys, they had monsters. I mean, these villains weren't just icons, they were the definition of evil. In the 90s, villains terrorized kingdoms. But look at modern Disney today. Where are the high stakes? Where's the actual evil? It's been replaced with group therapy and hugs. The great Disney songs, the drama, and the emotion all vanished. And I am so ready to get this off my chest. Today, Disney villains suck. But why, you may ask? Well, let's talk about it. This was by no means an accident. This was a planned corporate move that left us with the absolute worst Disney villains ever. Today we're investigating why Disney decided to erase the villains, and why when the bad guys leave, the magic left with them. But first, we have to back up and understand how we went from battling evil to group hugs. We have to look at the era where Disney wasn't afraid to hurt our feelings, and the greedy reason why they stopped. Before Disney became the safe space of cinema, they weren't afraid of the dark. Disney used to have the guts to show us the ugly parts of humanity, and I'm talking about the dark stuff. The villains back then weren't just silly clowns or misunderstood. They were walking nightmares. Scar didn't care about anything. He's killing everyone left and right to get what he wanted. Hades, the god of comedy? He tried killing a baby, enslaving the worlds, and banish his brother. He's also my personal favorite. And then we had Clayton from Tarzan. I mean, his death? Disney showed us the most epic off-screen death there is, bar none. But the fear factor wasn't just in the writing, it was also baked into the visual DNA of the film. See, Disney had a cool way of representing evil with the color lime green. Ursula's magic, Maleficent's fire, and Scar's smoke, it was all lime green. Green became synonymous with evil, and that was a subconscious warning label for us. When we saw that color, we thought, oh man, someone's about to die. But today, we see way more purples and blues, and even when green appears, it's more of like a mystery or a magical thing. But we didn't just lose the warning labels, we lost the personalities that came along with it. You see, these villains were so well written that the comedic genius oozed out of them. They had arrogance, timing, and a level of snark that went right over our heads as kids. Now this is the secret sauce of rewatchability. As you get older, you realize these jokes were actually for the adults. I mean, as we're watching Hades, he's not just a banished god. He was a slick Hollywood agent dealing with the dumbest interns ever. And the humor could get pitch black. For instance, when Scar's playing with that skull, there is no doubt he ate Mufasa and is playing with the skull. That's not only dark, but you gotta give it to him. That's really creative writing. But don't get me wrong, whoever made that suggestion, I would definitely be watching them and checking for bodies in their freezer. However, that's exactly what the writers loved. They loved the ability to be free and creative and leave Easter eggs. And I'll betcha that's the same guy that went, guys, I got a great idea. What if we killed Scar and made him the rugged Hercules? That level of detail, wit, and darkness created an audience for every age. You fell in love with the movie all over again as an adult because you finally got the joke. But the secret ingredient to all this and why it all worked so well was because these villains, they were absolute. You couldn't talk them out of being bad, and you couldn't hug the evil away. And the only way to win, the hero had to fight for their life. It was a battle of survival, not a debate. Now don't get me wrong, Hercules definitely had some daddy issues and a desperate need for validation. But he also chopped the head off of a Hydra to save an entire city. As kids, the villains taught us about real-world danger better than anyone. But in the early 2000s, Disney lost its nerve. The executives decided that violence and hate were too risky for shareholders. It seemed that actual conflict was too hard to sell to overseas markets and too dark for the toy aisle. Here we go. Silencing the villains was only step one. Disney was about to test a new kind of safe story that would fill their bank accounts and bore us to death. In the 2010s, Disney didn't get rid of the villains all at once, but they sure drained the rage out of them, making them a low-stakes inconvenience. Mother Gothel from Tangled was a first step. As you're watching it, you're like, geez, this chick is brutal. But she doesn't even come close to Ursula. And if you think about it, we never really see her do anything truly evil. I mean, it's not like she's Shen Yu trying to kill a badass girl and the Emperor of China. Her crime was just being a really narcissistic mom. And her death? Quick, dust-free, and PG-rated. Just how corporate likes it. And then came another real turning point with Frozen. Frozen wasn't just a movie. It was a merchandise catalog with a plot. Now granted, in this one, they did something totally different and flipped the script. Instead of making a movie about a prince and a princess, they made it about two sisters and overcoming adversity, which I actually thought was a pretty good spin. And that paid off big time. But can you point out to me a real villain? Because, come on, Prince Hans doesn't even come close. He was a surprise thrown in at the last second to wake up the audience. The real story was between two sisters having a breakdown. Drama! And this shift was so orchestrated. Jennifer Lee, the chief creative officer of Disney Animation, literally said it. The villain in Frozen is fear, not a person, an emotion. They didn't want a bad guy. They wanted a therapy session. If you break it down, Hans doesn't really do anything traditionally evil until the end. And even then, meh. He's just a manipulative guy climbing the corporate ladder. I mean, tell me a royal family that doesn't have that guy. The twist villain nonsense is such a cheap trick and easy writing. And honestly, I called that within the first second of meeting Hans because I'm like, this guy is way too nice. That's a red flag. And this kind of move somewhat makes a shallow movie feel deep, but it truly destroys the rewatchability. You can watch Aladdin 1,000 times because Jafar is fun to watch and you love to hate him. But once you know Hans is bad, his nice guy act in the first half just feels annoying. But it fit the business model and the Elsa dolls flew off the shelves. Villains are controversial and risky, and Disney hates risk. But internal conflict and fighting your own feelings? Money! I bet the marketing department at Disney was like, man, this is gonna sell itself. Elsa's journey was clean, easy to translate, and lawsuit-proof. This wasn't about telling a better story, it was about market optimization. And instead of giving us raw, gut-wrenching moments, they pivoted and made the enemy anxiety, which opened up a brand new lane for Disney. Now, the hero didn't have to beat the bad guy anymore. Their journey was to find themselves. Now granted, we're all trying to find ourselves. And what better way is there than to unwind with a Disney movie and remind me that I wasn't hugged as a kid? We watch for an escape and for the magic. Removing the edge made the movies easy to sell, repeat, and infinitely scalable. This new no-villain formula made them billions. But Disney was about to push it even further into a territory where the enemy wasn't just hidden, but literally invisible. Today, the Disney villain is basically extinct. The antagonist isn't a person anymore. It's a system, or a metaphor, or even bad weather. And in Canto, there is no bad guy. The problem is just a house breaking because grandma is stressed, which is literally every family. But instead of a big final boss, we get a long talk and a family hug. In Raya, the threat is the Droon, a faceless purple cloud. You can't fight it, you can't talk to it, you just have to trust it away. That is the most exciting plot I've ever heard in my life. Come on, Disney. All the tension disappears when your villain is basically an emotional storm. Shout out to my wife, love ya. But this move is what I like to call Pixarification of Disney. Disney saw the movie Inside Out, which I'm gonna break down in another video. But they forgot Pixar makes movies about concepts and Disney makes fairy tales. And with fairy tales, there's morality. And without morality, there's no lesson. In Wish, the bad guy is just a bureaucratic speed bump. When your big problem is stolen wishes, the ending feels like a lawsuit, not a war. Now ask yourself, where are the life lessons? Where's the sacrifice? Well, this confirms the theory. Disney replaced Scar and Jafar with misunderstood managers and clouds. And if you think I'm just being nostalgic, let's look at the bank account. At first, this safe strategy made Disney look like geniuses. Frozen made $1.2 billion. Frozen 2, $1.4 billion. But you can only sell the same lukewarm water for so long before people stop drinking. Now let's look at the last few films. Start with Strange World. No villain, just family drama. Lost nearly $2 million. Wish, weak villain, safe plot. Flopped at the box office. The audience is voting with their wallets. And if I had to guess, someone's getting fired at Disney. People are just tired of paying for mediocre therapy sessions disguised as a movie. And when there's no real villain, the audience just doesn't engage. I mean, look at Thanos. Billions of dollars worldwide with Marvel because they had a true villain. And you're not only robbing us of entertainment, but perhaps you might be subconsciously teaching kids that real evil doesn't exist. Look, fighting your feelings and finding yourself, it's interesting and it's part of the journey of life and it's necessary. But fighting a villain that wants to kill you and your family, well, that's a whole different lesson, and it seems that Disney's letting it slip away. Which moves on to the next point. With this shift of the narrative, we were losing a vital piece of our own psychological development. Older Disney movies didn't just tell stories, they taught us how to survive in a messed up world. They showed kids the truth. Sometimes people aren't misunderstood. Sometimes people are actually bad. Villains like Frollo and Ursula were early emotional training. They showed us what it feels like when someone tries to manipulate you or steal your voice. Sound familiar? It's basically training for dealing with politicians. Psychologists call this symbolic threat processing. It's the idea that kids practice how to deal with fear through stories. Modern Disney has completely deleted this practice because movies are very influential, and that's a crucial part of development. And this wasn't just a tool for kids, it was a bridge for the parents as well. Explaining societal evil to a toddler is kinda odd, but when you give the kid a chance to watch Jafar and say, "That's pure evil," then there's the link that was missing. Disney used to provide the visual aid for morality. It allowed the child to process and ask questions, and at that same time, it gave parents a bridge to explain the ugly stuff safely. By removing the monster, part of Disney's depth and redemption left. Without a real bad guy, kids are never shown what malice looks like. They're only taught how to fix their own bad moods. The lesson is changed from self-defense to self-soothing, which, of course, that's not a bad thing. But in a world where real evil exists, I mean, come on, Disney, throw us a bone and give us something. I'm dying over here. Older Disney movies weren't afraid to show us the ugly truth. It made the movies better and also made the villains so much more exciting to watch. I mean, the amount of times I saw my dad laugh at the villain is ridiculous. And there's probably some stuff I should unpack there in therapy. But a good shrink can't fix this next problem. Because the final crime that was committed wasn't just removing the villains, it was taking away probably one of the most influential things that Disney was known for. And oh my gosh, do I hate this. It was the music. Removing the villains didn't just ruin the plot, but it destroyed the music. This was such a crime, and I take this so personal. The heart and soul of Disney has always been the music, and nothing compares to the golden age from the 90s. Alan Menken and Howard Ashman, they were titans. Those guys gave us bangers, man. They were powered by death, danger, and overcoming adversity. Badass. Ursula's poor unfortunate soul was literally talking about the people that she's tortured, and it was literally locking Ariel into a lose-lose contract signed by her soul. And don't even get me started about the live-action remakes with the music, because that's a whole nother video that we're gonna dive into next. But back to the music. Let's take a look at Scar's gothic anthem. You were ready to march with Scar, and I was ready to sign on the dotted line. But the genius here is that while you were listening to it, you actually thought, you know, this guy over here, he's making some pretty good points. And that, my friends, is what happens when you put together creative and controversial writing with phenomenal compositions. Oh, I love it. But now, let's look at today's music, where not only the compositions have changed drastically, but so has the message. It used to be, I want. Now, it's all about I am, aka narcissist. Take Moana's ballad, I Am Moana. Look, it's a nice song and a ballad, but there's no real danger that's driving it. So when you take that out, you're taking away the risk. And ultimately, it just becomes a song about a crybaby. Just kidding with you, mate. No, the truth is, it's still a song with a great message about believing in yourself, which thankfully, Disney didn't falter from that. Now granted, that's a great message, but the stakes don't even come close to the 90s. Disney acts like finding yourself and fighting a villain are mutually exclusive. Okay, bud, I'm gonna stop you right there. Standing up to a monster that wants to kill you and talking to your grandma are two very different things. Mulan and Ariel found themselves by protecting the ones they loved while staring death in the face. And that's how you build character. Not by fighting a cloud, but by fighting for a life. Without a villain to drive the music, there was no momentum. And without momentum, the grand finale flops. The end result of getting rid of the villains is emotional flatness. The climax, the part of the movie where you should be gripping your seat, is now a soft plateau. It kills the drama, the excitement, and the life lessons. Now, there's nothing but a talk. In the 90s, the ending was a massive battle between light and dark, and you felt it. Today, the big finish is a hug or an apology. And look, I agree, those are great in real life, and I'm sure many families have benefited from it, but it's just not exciting. We go to the movies to escape reality and enter a magical world. The 90s were brave because they showed us that real evil is a force you have to face head on. They taught you to stare death in the face, protect the ones you love, and fight for what you believe in, especially when you're scared. Modern Disney chooses the safety of a world where the only enemy is your own anxiety. But a hero is only as bright as the shadow they overcome. And when you remove the shadow, you lose the spark. Because the truth is, without darkness, magic has nothing left to shine on.